Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Andrea and I have been a small business owner for almost 8 years now, which is crazy to say. And so this channel is all about sharing my experience on Etsy and just my experiences as a small business owner. And yeah, that's like a really fun thing for me to talk about. So if you're interested in that, you are in the right place. Today specifically, we are going to be answering a question that you might have swirling around in your head, especially if you're my age or younger than me. You might have this question swirling around in your head, and that's what we're gonna talk about. So the question is, should I start a business in my 20s? So today we are going to be talking all about that and just kind of unpacking what I think about that as someone who did start a business in their, well, I guess I started my business when I was 18, but anyway, as someone who has ran a business in their 20s, we're gonna be unpacking that question. So before we dive into this question, I do want to tell you guys a little bit more about me, just so you can kind of know where this advice is coming from and just have a good idea of, I don't know, like if you even want to listen to this advice from me or not. So I am about to turn 26. I am currently 25 and I started my business whenever I was 18. So I actually have started, I went into a whole nother story about this on this channel where I shared my full small business story from beginning to right now. But I actually have started 2 businesses, and then while one I started at the same time and one got way more profitable and the other one I was still trying to grow. And so I ultimately decided to switch over to my current business, which is selling embroidered items on Etsy. So that's the long story short of who I am and where I'm coming from. I started my business at 18. I did not go to college outside of I got my associate's degree because my mom said that you will regret not getting your associate's degree one day if you want to go back. And so we all got, I say we all because I'm one of 4 girls, we all got our associate's degrees. But that is the only college that I did, and I ran my business instead of pursuing a typical career. So all of that being said, I might not be able to give you the wise counsel that say your grandparents could give you or something like that, because it's not like I'm way past my 20s and looking back on my 20s. I am currently in my 20s. So obviously I think that all input, not all input, some people have bad advice, but a lot of input is valuable if you're pondering a life decision, but you might need to seek out that wise counsel way past their 20s from someone else. I am just here to share my experience from currently being in my 20s and running a small business on answering the question, should you start a business in your 20s? On a broad level, I think that whether or not you should start a business in your 20s depends drastically on your mental health, your physical location, your relationship. Are you single? Are you married? Are you dating? Are you about to be engaged? Your finances. Are you in a lot of student loan debt? Are you debt free? Like all of those sorts of things. It really is very highly dependent on your unique situation. I am not usually one to say like starting a business is a bad idea. Typically, I am all for people starting businesses, especially if you have the mind to start a small business. But typically, I am not one to say like, no, don't start a business. However, I do have, in my experience, this is just my advice. Like if you want to just turn off this video and not listen to my advice, that is totally fine. But there are some scenarios where I think, yes, starting a business is an amazing idea, and other scenarios where I think like maybe we should wait. Maybe there would be a better time or later in life, or just maybe not ready yet. And so I would like to kind of this video be broken up into 2 categories of like, absolutely, yes, pursue that, and maybe wait for a better time to pursue that business idea that you have. And so that is what we're going to talk about now. I'm going to talk about first, like, yes, pursue that. And then we're going to move into the times when I maybe think that it would not be as wise of a decision to pursue a small business in your 20s. Okay, moving straight into the yes, start a business, pursue that dream, things where I'm like, absolutely 100% yes. I'm just gonna basically list out some scenarios, and these are the things that I'm like, yeah, no, that would be a good scenario to start a business. So the very first one is that you have a business idea or a marketable skill. So like you know photography, or you know graphic design, or even like you know a lot about gardening and you want to start sharing gardening TikToks or gardening YouTube channels or something like that. Basically, you have an idea or a marketable skill that is at least somewhat proven to work. Like, I think that other people take this more seriously than me. I do not think that it needs to be like 100% proven, absolutely. But I would personally, if I was going to start a business in my 20s, I would definitely want to see at least someone else doing what I'm doing and doing well at it before I dumped all the time and maybe finances into pursuing that business myself. So I definitely recommend having like, if your business idea or skill or content idea, I would look and seek out to make sure that it is proven, at least somewhat proven, or at least one other person has done what you've done, which I know is maybe not the typical small business like dream content that you might have came here to find. But I do think that it being proven is really, really good for your motivation. And like, I think that staying motivated, because I think that some people don't realize how much work small business is. You want to be able to say like, yes, this will work. And you might not know that if no one else has ever done it. And also, you just don't want to dump a bunch of time and money into things that are not proven. So I do think that, yes, start the business if your idea is at least somewhat proven in the marketplace. The next situation where I think absolutely yes, start that business, is you have free time to dedicate to it or disposable income or both. So starting a business does take a lot of work, and typically, which I'm going to go into the situations where I do not think it's a good idea to start a business, but typically you are spending a lot of your own personal time without seeing a ton of return in the beginning. Like, definitely you need time to build and to grow. And I think that is something that you have to have. You either have to have the disposable income to hire those jobs done, or you need to have the free time in order to get those jobs done that are just absolutely necessary for having a business before you even get paid. There are a lot of jobs that need to happen before you get paid, and the building phase is a really tough one. And so I definitely recommend, if you need to have that time, and if you do have that time and you do have an idea that you are excited about and it's proven and you have the time or the disposable income, my answer would be yes, start the business. Piggybacking right off of that last scenario is that you need to be willing to put in the work. So if you're willing to put in the work, definitely start the business. It's a lot of work. Sometimes I don't know that people fully understand how much work it is. Like, it's not that I'm saying like I work so hard, but I'm just saying there is a lot of work when it comes to running a small business. And so definitely, if you need to be willing to put in that small business. And if you are, I would say to start it. I also think that this next one's a very, very big deal for knowing whether you should or should not start a small business. And it needs to be a situation where if it is not an overnight success, things will be okay. And I absolutely think there is something to be said for being put in a situation where you have to make it work. And I think that that's a good thing. It's a good motivator. And so I'm not saying like, don't be motivated. Don't give yourself deadlines. Don't. I love jump before you're ready. I'm all about that. However, if you are going to default on your home mortgage next month, maybe don't do that. Like, I'm not saying that like, maybe in 6 months or whatever. I'm saying like, if it literally needs to be a thing where you need to make money in the next minute, the next day, the next week, maybe it would be a good idea to get a little bit more financially stable before you start the business. If it is okay, if it's not an overnight success, if it's a thing where you're like, nope, I can take 6 months to grow. I can take even just a month to grow, 3 months to grow. If it doesn't need to be next week, I would say start the business. And it's good to have a motivator, but definitely one of those things where you don't want to squash your creativity and your excitement for the business just because it has to be an overnight success. Otherwise, things are going to go bad. You know what I'm saying? The last thing I definitely think you need to have mentally in order to start a business, or in order to get a yes, start that business, would be that you're excited about the potential of being an entrepreneur. You're excited about being full-time self-employed. You need to be excited about this idea. Like I said, it takes a lot of work. It takes disposable income. It takes a lot. And so you really need to be excited and thrilled and like ready to go and motivated to make this business work. So I definitely think that if you have all those things, like an idea that is proven or the time to do it, and you're willing to work and you're not in a situation where it needs to work by tomorrow, and you're stoked about your business, definitely yes, start the business in your 20s. Okay, so the situations where I would say do not start a business, honestly, are kind of just like the opposite of the situations where I think absolutely yes, start a business. So we covered it. So this category is going to be a little bit smaller, but I think that like don't start a business if you are not willing to work and you want it to be like an overnight print money. It's just going to be like, yes, absolutely. Like me and my husband call it a print money operation, basically meaning like instant cash and a lot of it. I don't think that you should start a business in your 20s if that is what you are after. If you are only after an overnight success with no work, do not start a business in your 20s. That is not what it is. Don't start a business at all, because that's not how it works. I think that a lot of times TikTok and Instagram and just social media in general makes it to where we see the tip of the iceberg, but we don't actually see the iceberg of work that was put in before someone has a lot of success. And so I think that we maybe think it's easier than it really is, or it happens faster than it does. And that is not the case. So I definitely think that if you are expecting an overnight success and tons of money right away with no work, no, do not start the business. It would be a bad idea. I totally understand that business loans are a thing, and I absolutely understand that they are completely necessary. However, sometimes I do think that you see a lot of overspending, and I don't know, I tend to be very debt averse, just because I feel like self-employed makes you that way, rather than like a salaried job. But the other scenario where I would not start a business is you would have to go into a lot of debt for it, a lot of unnecessary debt for it, and then you're justifying overspending, or you would have to leave a really good job for it before you're making the income to justify it. So I hope that this doesn't come off as never go into debt. That's not what I'm saying, but I do think that there are times whenever we jump before fully getting ourselves in a financial place to where we are able to make that jump. And I am all about, again, I'm all about jumping before you're ready, but I'm also all about really having a good a good handle on finances. And like I said, I'm very debt averse. So I'm also pretty risk averse when it comes to my finances. So I personally would make sure that I was in a decently comfortable spot, either with debt or with my job. And I would definitely try to avoid getting myself into situations where I'm either accruing a lot of debt or overspending, or leaving a really, really good job before my self-employed money was at least covering half of it. You know what I'm saying? So definitely, basically, I would say don't start the business if you are not ready financially. And I would look at the financial situation pretty closely, personally. Obviously, the last thing is that if your idea has not proven you've done no research to know if it's a good idea, you're just off the cuff, like, I think that'd be a good idea. Maybe do a little bit more research before it's time to start the business. You definitely want to make sure that your idea is proven before you're dedicating all that time and money. And yeah, so that would be the last scenario where I think when maybe don't start the business yet, would be to make sure that your idea is proven before you do that. I would like to say that all of the no, don't start the business, I do not mean like don't start that business. Like I said, I'm very, very pro business. I'm very pro people doing that. I'm pro jump before you're ready, all of those things. But I do think that we can still be wise in that. And there are things that are not wise. And almost every time I say like no, I just really mean like I just wouldn't do it yet. And this is just coming from the experience of someone who is 20 and in the small business. Maybe you'd ask your grandparents and they would say something completely different. So that's just from my experience. You can take it or leave it, all that sorts of stuff. This is maybe a really bad way of thinking, but I like to think about what I'll regret later. Maybe that's like, I don't know, kind of morbid, but what I'll regret versus what I won't regret. I don't think I'll ever regret putting in the work or putting myself out there or taking a chance. I don't regret, like, never am I like, man, I worked so hard. I really regret that. Maybe in the time I'm like, oh, I wasted a lot of time. But all of those things where it's time spent and opportunities taken, it's a learning experience. And I've never regretted that. I've also never regret putting myself out there online, which if you are someone who has an idea for starting a business with content and you're worried about making a fool of yourself, trust me, you will never regret it. I promise you. Make the stupid Instagram reel, make the TikTok that sounds silly, record the YouTube video. You're not going to regret that. And so I think in those situations where you're thinking like, I have this idea that's really low startup cost, I just really want to pursue it, but I'm worried what people think of me. Forget what they think about you and absolutely start the business. Some things that I think you maybe would regret is quitting a job, going into debt, overspending. I'm not saying you're definitely going to regret it. There's plenty of people. Some of my favorite channels on YouTube are people that went into debt and worked their butts off to get out of it, and they absolutely don't regret it. So I'm not saying that you are definitely going to regret it. However, it is a situation where it's a lot higher risk, in my opinion, than just putting yourself out there online. Obviously, this comes from my value set and what I think about life, but I just think I like to think of like, okay, will I regret putting myself out there online? No, normally no. I'm not very shy. I don't worry about that too much. Will I regret massively overspending and putting me and my husband into a situation where we have to shift a lot around financially? Yes, I could definitely do that. And so those are the things that I like to consider whenever I'm making business decisions, or things that I think you should consider when you're talking about starting a business at all. All in all, this is obviously a highly personal decision. It's dependent on your mental health, your relationships, your finances, all of those things. It is a highly personal decision, but I do hope that my experience of having a business in my 20s and just sharing that with you and sharing like what I would do or what I wouldn't do is valuable to you. If it's not, feel free to throw it all out. I don't care. I'm so glad you watched this video. I really hope it was helpful. Thank you so much for being here. I mentioned this in the beginning, but this channel is where we talk about small business. We talk about Etsy specifically very often. So if you are interested in selling on Etsy or just e-commerce or small business as a whole, do feel free to subscribe. I post 2 new videos every week all about those sorts of things. And I'm so glad you are here. Thank you so much for watching.